I'm Catherine Canning, and I am based in Glasgow at our University, Glasgow Caledonian University. And we are known, and our mission is the University for the Common Good. So sustainability, I hope, is very much embedded within the things that we do. And what I do is I'm responsible for teaching consumer behaviour within our fashion and marketing department, and I teach at undergraduate level and postgraduate level. And my research involves sustainable consumption and circular fashion and vintage fashion. I've been studying for many, many years. But I'm also a co-author and co-editor of a book that's coming out next year, which we're really excited about with a couple of my colleagues, which is called Pioneering New Perspectives in the Fashion Industry, Disruption, Diversity and Sustainable Innovation. So I'll now move on to the specifics of today's presentation, which is about rental fashion. So very different from our previous speakers. And I think this morning what was nice to hear about at the keynote speeches was that we need to come together in all these cross-disciplinary areas and find solutions for our focus to move from lots of growth and overconsumption to placing our emphasis on the earth and its inhabitants. So what we have been looking at in our circular fashion research is, with my two colleagues, Elaine and Noreen, this idea of how we can keep existing clothing in the marketplace and not have to continue to make more and more and more. So what I've called this presentation today is about renting style, exploring fashion rental practice and the power of the social media influencers. So in terms of IT, I have very little skill, but I do know about social media influencers who have lots of skill, but I'm going to talk about the influence that they have rather than how they do it behind the scenes and the IT point of view. So the background is that there's been a call in the literature for a change in the fashion industry to shift from a linear process to a circular one. And this would significantly reduce environmental impact. So as well as recycling, repairing and reselling, fashion rental services also offer potential extension of the life cycle of garments and accessories. Renting fashion beyond occasion wear, which we've seen for many, many years, such as organising, renting things for weddings or other special occasions. The research was saying that this is worthy of further investigation. And in particular, over times of COVID-19, we saw this renting market completely transform from around 2019, a little dip over 2020, but very, very highly engaged with over 2021. So it's very new, but it's actually exploding at the moment. So little research addresses sustainable fashion and social media influencers, but also this renting is very new. So I was very interested to have a look at that. So right now, I've created a conceptual framework because we're in progress of our research. We're only partly way through it. And what I'm looking at is that the existing dominant social paradigm of fashion, particularly with Generation Z females, young females, is around price and convenience, watching the marketing processes that are on social media, and this desire of having new things, which of course is how we've been conditioned over the years as consumers. We moved from citizens to consumers a long time ago when brands began to invite us to engage with them and to sell us more and more and more. And as a consumer behaviourist, I'm very interested in why we buy the things that we buy, why we continue to consume, even though a lot of people now are beginning to understand and feel a bit guilty about this consumption process. So I've been researching about this for many years now. So what we're seeing is new forms of fashion consumption, which involves secondhand clothing, swaps and sharing, online stores such as Vinted and Depop, which sell secondhand products. And now we're seeing this beginning of rental services of fashion. What I'm also interested in is looking at the role and the power of sustainable social media influencers, because we've had social media influencers for quite a long time now, but there's this new environment that's been created by what's called the sustainable social media influencer. And what the context is going to be is to look at how these sustainable SMIs create content about renting and influencing behavioural change, particularly the younger consumers, because they're the people who are engaging with social media. So I'm going to take us through some research questions and where I've got to so far, explain a little bit about the research, and then make some conclusions at the end. So how do fashion rental services contribute to the circular economy? What and who are sustainable fashion social media influencers? How do these sustainable fashion social media influencers relate to their followers, and in this case of Gen Z? And how might the sustainable fashion social media influencers contribute to the environmental agenda of the fashion industry, if at all? So the proposed research is in progress. It's an interpretive approach, exploratory in nature because it's very new. We're looking at qualitative research strategy, and we've done a literature review and an analysis of retail services in the UK. Going forward, the plan is to do an ethnography and do thematic analysis of Instagram accounts, and also to speak to sustainable social media influencers themselves. So I've already got some of that lined up, and that's in progress. So the core value proposition is what we are interested in anything in marketing, where we're looking at what is valuable for the customer and why they want to engage or consume or buy that product. So in rental, there's a wide variety of choice. It's cheaper than buying something new. It enables access to variety, including designer luxury products, which for many young fashion-conscious consumers is something that's not particularly accessible. And with renting, it can become accessible. There's minimal financial risk while offering potentially a more environmentally friendly offering. However, there are criticisms. Does this encourage overconsumption? And does it just keep that kind of conditioning of consumption continuing? There's the travel implications of sending, posting, packaging products that are sent through the post. And of course, there's the risks of sizing, wrong fit, damage, having to return, etc. So the literature, many of us will know as participants in the conference about the huge statistics in terms of wastage. So I have a couple of them here. 140 million pounds of clothing is thrown out to landfill each year, and renting is predicted to be worth 7.5 billion pounds by 2026 globally. 45% of people stated that they had items in their wardrobe that they'd only worn once, and 35% would consider renting, and this was in a study by Lumley. Renting allows for longer use, and it reduces pollution of new clothing production. Of course, it reduces waste. Eventually, these rented products will eventually wear out as well, mind you. And renting fashion enables more frequent access to higher end fashion. What people often look for, especially our younger consumers, is to go with fashion trends, to be stylish, and to have some kind of status, because newness culture and value expressive culture that is in the fashion industry is really, really important to our younger consumers. So who are they? Well, the Generation Z are young digital natives, and they are very important fashion consumers. Born between 1995 to 2020, these young people have exposed to social media their entire lives. They spend nearly 11 hours consuming content, reading, liking and sharing across a variety of devices every day, checking Instagram up to 5 times a day. And I know from speaking to my students who are in this generation that some of them spend more than that. Over lockdown, they were certainly spending way more than 11 hours online. And when they look at how much they're spending, when I ask them to do an analysis of themselves, they become very uncomfortable about how much they are doing that. And they know they're doing it, but they find it very difficult to reduce that. And many of them really enjoy seeking these brand experiences, and they prefer digital content of the social media influencer to traditional advertising. So why are they so effective? Well, there's been a lot of research over the years on the social media influencer, but this is one that's a bit more up to date and looks at two areas: the personal related traits and the content, the actual creative stuff that's on these social media internet sites, the blogs and the YouTube sites and the Instagram sites and TikTok, for example. So a lot of it is about the personality, just like celebrity engagement. But what we're finding is that the literature is telling us that actually the social media influencer are these people who are online and therefore much more relatable than these kind of Beyoncés or celebrities that might be used by brands to help market the message of the brand. So much more relatable. The personal related traits are really, really important when it comes to these influencers. The inspiration, how much they're enjoyed and entertained, the relatability, the physical attractiveness, and the authentic nature of these people are all really, really highly important in terms of influencing and getting people to engage and therefore change behaviour potentially. And the content, of course, how informative it is, the visual aesthetics of the content, and the expertise that comes across in the content. These are all areas of effectiveness that the literature is telling us in terms of what makes these SMIs very powerful. The sustainable ones, however, are a little bit different. They're content creators who've become popular discussing and sharing about sustainable fashion on social media. They exhibit a high level of awareness of environmental issues and the fashion industry and are seeking to find new ways to address sustainable behaviours for themselves. They have a lot of power and influence, and they know this, and findings suggest that they believe they have influenced their followers to reduce consumption of new clothing and accessories. But this is very new, and the research is very lacking at the moment, so more is needed. They discuss thrifting, they discuss secondhand, they discuss resale and repair and buying less. In the main, that is what they're discussing. They're not really talking about rental services just yet. Some of them are, though. This is becoming part of the content. So Generation Z are more conscious of environmental issues than previous generations. So yes, they have less money as younger people, but they're beginning to understand that the environment is important, but they still want to be fashionable. This report said that due to the power of the social media influencers have become a vital part of marketing brand strategy as marketing communications seek to reach large communities of followers. And sustainable fashion SMIs are content creators who have become popular discussing and sharing about sustainable fashion on social media. So we did a web and a discourse analysis, and one of the things that really struck me was that not only was there's this, thousands of sustainable influencers, many more general social media influencers for every sector, basically, but there's also now digital marketing agencies who are managing these influencers, some of them calling them independent micro influencers, and many of them work independently by themselves. And we see bloggers, YouTubers, Instagram users, TikTok users. So there's a variety of ways that we can do this research. Well, what I chose to do for this presentation was show an example of a New York digital social media agency, which has a program called the 100 Top Sustainability Influencers to Follow in 2022. So that just gives you a sense of, that we're not just talking the top 10, we're talking 100. There's so many people out there because, of course, we've been empowered as consumers to begin to create our own content now because of the internet. What they say is sustainability influencers are the game changers who genuinely care about social change and environmental impact, and they use their voices to promote change and sustainability. So here's another example. Again, I wasn't going to give you the top 100. I've chosen some of these, and these are just to give you an idea of what they're about. This is Tara McKenna, who is based in Canada, and she started the At Zero Waste Collective. She has an Instagram called Mindfully Tara, and she has 1,000 followers. Some of the followers that we will see now have got millions of followers. And what we've also seen is a change where consumers want to follow the up-and-coming influencers who don't have these millions of followers anymore, because again, they're much more relatable. If they're if they're able to put things online, I can maybe follow them, some of the consumers will think. So Aja Baber is originally from Virginia, but is now based in the UK, and she's the author of the book Consumed. And what she has done, which is quite interesting, is created not only content around sustainability. She has talked a little bit about renting. She also talks about all kinds of inclusivity issues and size inclusivity, race inclusivity in the fashion industry. So she's a kind of all-round interesting character to follow, with considerable followers too. And here is another one who I would say follows or comes under the umbrella of a social media influencer who is less likely to be preaching about sustainability, but more about trying different ways to reduce consumption, but also to buy into designer brands and have style. Using secondhand and rental is one of the things that she talks about. So she has a bit less, with 23,900 followers, but still very significant. So the changing marketplace because of COVID-19, we have all sorts of issues that happened in the fashion industries we know about, but we also have a cost of living crisis, really feeling the pinch here in the UK at the moment. And it's no longer just about what is offered, but how, and the experience remains important for consumers. Social media influencers create influential engagement, and they're perceived as more trustworthy than brands advertising now. They influence through their own source credibility and by building parasocial relationships with their followers. So actually, they're very powerful and they're highly influential. They showcase sustainable fashion on social media in a way that is actually much more powerful than, for example, eco brands and their own messaging. And also how fashion brands have been targeting various segments of the marketplace for many, many years is no longer working to the same way. So looking at rental services, I've got a selection here, which are, again, from our research that we've collected, which looks at different kinds of rental services: designer dresses, peer-to-peer, who share their own clothing by these platforms, which is also really interesting. Designer brands, affordable daywear, and basics, dresses, coats, jackets. And the one at the end is Endless Wardrobe, which is about renting products, but if you want to, you can also buy pre-loved products as well. So they're kind of giving us all kinds of ways of accessing secondhand clothes. I've got some examples here, and this is the Her Collective, which has a Gucci bag at the moment, which is retailing at £1,470, and you can rent for 4 or 5 days for a mere £100 or so. Here we have Crystal Ski Holidays collaboration with rental services by Rotation. And this is just one of the examples where they talk about their ski edit and actually buying lots of equipment for one-time holidays to go skiing, for example, can be very expensive. You might just wear it once for that holiday, right? So this is a weekly rent of £30 as opposed to buying a new suit for £310. And they've also used celebrities which have been on TV on Love Island and other celebrity type micro-influencers, if you like, that are on these Love Island and celebrity shows. Again, Generation Z are watching these. Here's an example for slightly older than Generation Z, but I thought it would be useful to show you because the millennials are certainly getting into this kind of activity now. The littleloop.com, which is a subscription offer where you can buy and share clothing for children, which of course makes perfect sense, being that they grow so quickly. And I know for sure when my children were small, nothing like this existed, but I certainly used lots and lots of hand-me-downs that I was given from my friends. If you pay £18 a month, you can have 6 to 7 new items on average. And of course, that depends on how many items you want, and the subscription varies. There's also an ethical retail dimension here because the Little Loop only use ethical suppliers. I've given you a couple of examples of some of the names. And they also have a collaboration with John Lewis. And a lot of these rental services are now going to be collaborating with Selfridges, with John Lewis, and with Marks and Spencer's, which is the last example that I have here, which looks at Higher Street, which I think is a fantastic name, which was launched fairly recently, and became a bit more popular in 2021. I was very skeptical about whether or not high street fashion would actually be worth renting. But what I do like is this idea of Marks and Spencer, which they've come up with this year, which is about renting whole capsules of wardrobe. And that means that if you are a minimalist and you get fed up with the clothes that you have, you can rent, if you want to, a whole wardrobe for a capsule to go on holiday or whatever, if that's something that would be appealing. And that can be for £39 for a group of clothes which are worth £200 to £323. So I'm almost finished my presentation, but I want to bring in this notion of fashion and identity before I come to the end, because Generation Z enjoy hedonic lifestyles and designer fashion, and they also want to be more sustainable. So there's a real complex conflict going on for them, that they like to buy impulsively and they like frequent acquisition. They're motivated by price, and therefore renting fashion maybe is a good way for them to access the higher end fashion at a more sustainable way. It reduces the risk because you can try before you buy, and it can change style more frequently. It generates excitement, and they can go and do the shopping and have things delivered to them. Perhaps renting platforms have a potential to develop a new paradigm. So the findings so far is that fashion rental services contribute to the circular economy. It's predicted to grow and will be a significant segment of the circular economy going forward. It's predicted to grow 127% by 2026. And content creators, or the SMIs themselves, exhibit a high level of awareness of environmental issues in the fashion industry and are seeking to find new ways to address sustainable behaviours for themselves. They have really strong relationships with their followers. They're powerful and influential, and I think will be important in influencing adoption of rental services, but perhaps more importantly, important in terms of them influencing people to be more sustainable. How does sustainable fashion social media influencers relate? Well, like other sectors, they're appreciated for their authenticity and their transparency, their likability, and their creative, engaging content. The relatability is high because of the low risk and the accessibility of renting. And I think they have considerable power if they walk the talk and continue to entertain and educate due to their substantial influence. They're highly likely to be important in environmental improvements. However, there is criticism and concern that rental simply continues to enforce overconsumption. And of course, there's the carbon footprint in the packaging and the transport, and all of that is yet to be determined. So the early findings indicate that they exhibit a high level of awareness of the environmental issues and are seeking new ways to address sustainable behaviours for themselves, and therefore they have power and influence. And these findings suggest that they believe they have influenced their followers so far to reduce consumption of new clothing and accessories. But that fashion rental is still a new phenomenon and that it will take time for followers to adopt. And there's some criticism and concern that rental simply continues to enforce overconsumption. So future research is going to be highly interesting, I think. And findings will offer novel information for the rental service industry and new insights about the behaviour of these influential, sustainable people and their large Generation Z communities who buy a lot of fast fashion at the moment. So that's me finished. Thank you very much.